Tonight, we journey into the heart of mystery. In the rugged wilderness of British Columbia, a tragedy from 1965 still lingers in the trees and in the shadows. A passenger plane explodes in midair, 52 lives lost, and 6 decades later, the case remains unsolved. The largest mass murder in Canadian history. But at the crash site, something else stirs. Sasquatch sightings, ghostly encounters, disembodied voices, even whispers of UFOs and skinwalkers. What is this place? And why does it defy logic? We'll explore it with my guest, Dave Scott of Spaced Out Radio, in the beginning of tonight's show. Then we're going to turn our eyes to the stars, and to Mars in particular. A shocking new warning from scientists suggests that humans settling the red planet could face bizarre transformations. Does this sound familiar to anybody else? Turning green, losing their eyesight, and evolving into something unrecognizable? Researcher Mark Lanoue joins me to break it down. The strange, the chilling, and the unexplainable. It all starts right here. I'm Dave Schrader, and this is my Paranormal 60.
I'm not gonna stand here and listen to this baloney.
You won't know. He doesn't stand for baloney.
Sounds like a lot of supernatural baloney to me.
Supernatural, perhaps. Baloney, perhaps not.
Darklings, when a friend of mine reaches out and says, Dave, I've got some weird stuff to talk to you about, I take it very seriously, especially when that friend also has an amazing name like Dave. So, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome back to the Paranormal 60, Dave Scott. Good evening, Dave.
How you doing, my friend? Long time, no time.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're back together talking tonight, getting a chance to connect. Now, I was going to tell everybody after this, tune in to Spaced Out Radio, but you've taken the week off, Dave Scott. They allow that?
I know, it's strange, but you know what? I want to redo my studio.
Gotcha.
You know, so I've got a new motherboard that I need to put in, and we got to try and fix a couple of audio issues, and we want to make it a little bit more studio-like, more, because trying to find the balance between terrestrial radio and then you got the social media side of YouTube and everything, you kind of want to make it a little bit more demure, shall we say. So that's what we're going to be doing.
Well, it wouldn't hurt to have a picture of me up in that podcast room. I'm just saying.
I have been begging for an autographed Dave Schrader photo for years. And no matter what I do, even trying to beg Winnie to do this, and I still don't have one.
Dave, the Canadian conversion rate is just out of control.
I know.
I mean, here the picture's only 20, but to Canada it's like 4,875 Canadian dollars. I don't even think that's a real amount.
Right?
Let's get started with this case, because when you reached out to me, sent me this email, to say I'm intrigued is maybe a bit of an understatement. So talk to me about this location, and how did you get to know about it, Dave?
Flight 21 happened July 8th, 1965, where coming out of Vancouver, a plane, an old DC-6 plane that was going to make a milk run up to the Yukon Territory, blew up about 25 miles outside of my town. And it wasn't until I started learning about this, I moved up here a decade ago. And then, as I started getting into the more paranormal side of the community and everything, people said, hey, have you ever heard of Flight 21? Well, what is this? And so I became intrigued until, my buddy Merle in 2018, right. Merle came up here and he's like, dude, let's go investigate Flight 21. To this day, we still think that was the first ever paranormal investigation there. And due to time, I'm going to kind of keep the stories a little bit shorter, but the big thing that happened there was after we did the paranormal investigation, we decided to take a deer trail, see if there was any more debris or anything around. And that's when we heard the samurai chatter. So if you remember Ronald Moorhead's samurai chatter from the Sierra Sounds, So we're standing in the middle of the forest.
Now,
There is
now for the listeners that may not be familiar with what samurai chatter is or what it's
yes,
attached to, it is Bigfoot language or believed to be a form of Bigfoot language and communication, correct?
correct, correct. So here we were thinking ghosts. We weren't even thinking Sasquatch at the time. And all of a sudden, this kind of gruff growl starts talking to us. So I leaned over to Merle and I said, "Hey, man, did you hear that?" And he goes, "Hear what, Dave?" I said, "Did you hear that voice?" He goes, "Yep." So we called over to our armed guard, our good friend of mine, Mark. Okay, because the reason why we have an armed guard in this area, or we do go in armed to this area, we have grizzly bears, we have black bears, we have record size mountain lions, we have wolf packs, we have, as silly as this may sound for American listeners who aren't from the northern reaches, but moose are more deadly than any other animal in Canada's forests. And you get a 1,600 pound moose, whether it's a mama with her calf or whether it's a big bull, they're going to do some damage to you. They don't care. And so that's the reason why we go in armed. So all of a sudden we walk back to the crash site. This voice happens twice. Merle goes by one of the pieces of landing gear, and all of a sudden the bushes start shaking right like 15 feet from him. And so with that, we kind of got scared out. At that exact same moment, our armed guard Mark is tracking something bipedal coming at him. And the exit happened to be in between. And that's how it all began in 2018. In 2020, we'd been there numerous times between 2018 and 2023. Okay. In 2023, we went there and we had some incredible encounters. We actually brought an independent film crew with us. And Dave, God is my witness, we had activity of Sasquatch roaring, Sasquatch growling from our base camp, which led to us having a sighting of a UFO on the ground. And here's the weird part about the paranormal, guys. I don't know how this works, but Dave, I saw the UFO on the ground. The 6 other people could not see the UFO, but they saw aliens walking through the trees.
But did you see aliens?
I did not see the aliens.
Weird.
Yeah.
So they're able to physically see these creatures, these beings walking through the woods.
Physically.
But they're not able to see a craft. You're able to see this craft. And how big would you put this craft to be?
I would put it at about 8 feet tall. And it looked like the shape of it, it was matte brown color. And the shape of it was like the outside of a number 8. I'd never seen anything like that.
Right.
And I mean,
any discernible windows or portals?
Nothing. The only thing that was discernible about it was that at first I thought, because we had heard a growl from our base camp, and as I was looking through the trees towards our base camp, we literally saw this thing, or I saw this thing, and the sun was shining off the top left corner. And that's how I knew it was metallic. Oh. And Dave, this thing was maybe 15 yards, 20 yards from me. It was close. And to the matter of fact, on that point, a week and a half ago, I had Merle and a good friend of ours, Lee Strauss, up here, and Lee actually brought out his Geiger counter. And we went through the forest with his Geiger counter, nothing happening. We got to that spot where the UFO was, and it's still picking up radiation in that area.
High levels?
I've never used a Geiger counter before, but it was spiking. I think at normal level, it was like a 0.14. And then in this area, it was going to a 0.19 to a 0.23. It should. And Dave, we're in the middle of the forest. Okay. Like for people who don't know where I live in a small town. There's 2,000 people here. Okay. And when you go that deep into the forest, 25 miles, you're nowhere. You're in the middle of nowhere. There's nobody around. There's nobody camping. There's nobody around. You don't even see a vehicle rarely on the same road that you're going on. And
Wow.
then after you get off that main road to take the goat trail to Flight 21, which is another 2 miles of, like you need a 4x4. You're not going to get in there in your Honda Civic. It's definitely way out there and off the path. There's one way in, there's one way out, and you have to be able to really get a 4x4 to get in there.
Now,
Never mind.
Can I
Yeah.
can I ask Dave, when your friends saw the aliens,
Yeah.
were they just seeing shapes or were they
No.
seeing full
No.
aliens?
Full aliens. It was about one person saw legs, about 4 or 5 different sets of legs. Another person saw a gray at about 6 feet tall. Actually, 2 people saw the gray 6 feet tall. Merle is still confused about what he saw, and the camera people they didn't want to talk about it. And to this
The
day,
reason I ask
yeah,
is because there are other locations where a massive tragedy has happened, where old orphanages have been uncovered, and they find the old burial ground, and in the woods they see the children. Train accidents, plane accidents, things like that. I just wondered, is there any chance that maybe what you're seeing are the spirits of horribly disfigured and burned patrons from that plane?
great question. I would say no, because of the giant bulbous head with the black eyes.
Right.
Right. And we have had sightings of ghosts there. We've had voices of ghosts. We've had EVPs when we haven't even expected them to happen at this location. And it is absolutely crazy. In 2024, Dave, we went out there and we refilmed out there.
Mm-hmm.
And we got escorted out by the Sasquatch. We didn't see them. They surrounded us. We figured there was about 5 or 6 because we could hear them all around us. And when we actually got into our vehicles and left, they whistled right behind us. Like,
Oh,
okay,
really?
giving the signal that, okay, these idiots are gone. And I swore I would never go back there again unless it was daytime. And this past November, the location actually started haunting me and saying, "You're coming back. You need to come back."
Yikes.
And
What do you make of that?
scared the hell out of me.
Has there ever been a location that's had that kind of impact or effect on you?
No, never once. And it was taunting me. I've only ever heard of that one other time, a gentleman named Nelson Dellis, who's the 5-time United States memory champion. And he literally was haunted by Mount Everest in the same way. Like he would at night have premonitions of Everest calling him back. And the funny part about it is I think Everest wanted to kill him. He tried 4 times and he was never able to summit. And that's the only other time that I've heard of this happening. So my buddy Tim James, my UFO reporter on my show, he lives by me, and I had this conversation with him. And I said, "Bud, I'm offering this to you. I need to go out there." And he goes, not even a second guess. He's like, "I'm in. Let's go." So since May, once the snow melted, we have been going out there almost every Saturday for the last number of months. And every time we go in there, it's different. And
Now, are you able to gauge any kind of readings in that area? Is there any spikes in geomagnetic principles or the barometric pressure or anything that's discernible?
scientifically, no,
Okay.
because we're not that technically advanced in our research yet. We're still trying to build trust with the area, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
One weird thing that kind of adds to what you just said was that we actually walked into an area 2 weeks ago, and we're in a little meadow, like a 40 by 40 meadow. And Dave, there was no oxygen in there. Tim and I were both struggling to breathe in that area.
And it wasn't an allergic reaction to
No.
the wilderness?
No, I was looking down at the ground, looking at the moss, and I'm like, man, I would love to take a nap right now because I'm struggling breathing. And I already struggle to breathe because I have a bad nose. Um, and I have sleep apnea and everything. And I look over at Tim and I said, man, would I love to take a nap right on this moss right now? And all of a sudden he goes absolutely ghost white shocked. He goes, you too? He goes, I was literally just thinking about what it would be like to have my lawn chair here and take a nap. I said, are you struggling to breathe? He goes, but I can't breathe in here. And we pulled out, we pulled out, Dave, and we go about, 20 feet back. That's it, 20 feet. And we could breathe like there's nothing there. And then we take this side trail that parallels this, and we go another 30 yards past this, and the exact same thing happened. We couldn't breathe.
Well, that seems like there's something that should be trackable, right? Or
Yeah.
But again, how would you, right? You're in the out of doors. How do
How do
you
you?
measure oxygen level?
Yeah. We were there again a week and a half ago, walked right into those areas, could breathe, no problem.
Jeez.
Just like I'm breathing right now. Yeah. But Flight 21 offers so many things that we don't understand. The only real pattern we've been able to find right now is that come dusk, okay? Come dusk is when things get hairy. We've had funny things happen. We've had scary things happen. The funny thing that happened was about 3 weeks ago. We're sitting there trying to set up prepare one of our trail cameras to set up. And all of a sudden, probably 40 yards in front of us, we hear something big move through the trees and it starts farting. Yeah. Yeah. Dave,
what are you looking at me for, Dave? I wasn't there.
Well, I'm looking at my camera. So, but Dave, it was absolute. And I looked over at Tim and I said, are you literally believing what we just heard? And we went back there a week later and we found scat that we've never seen before. We've actually had outdoors people who have a lot of time in the hunting this area in the forest. Okay. And where I live, it's filled with hunters. And I take pictures and show them, hey, have you ever seen scat that looks like this? Nobody has seen scat that looks like that before. They're like, it's not a bear. It's not a horse. It's not a moose. It's not a deer. It's not a cat. It's weird. We actually took some samples of that, and we're going to be trying to find somebody who can maybe look into that poop for us. But we've had that. We've had tree knocks happen literally in that same location where it was like somebody took a Louisville slugger and swung as hard as, pick your home run hitter, Barry Bonds back in the day, and just whacked this tree twice in a row. This was right after a First Nation shaman did her drumming and singing. They seem to react well to that.
Wow.
I don't know why, but we have had probably, though, the scariest encounter we had was about 2 months ago, where Tim and I, we just finished doing a little bit of a break. We sat down, turned the camera off for a couple of minutes, and all of a sudden, Dave, way off in the distance, we start hearing a woman's voice, and it's very monotone, and it's, help me. I'm over here. Can you help me? And I looked over at Tim and I said, are you hearing this? He goes, yep. And this went on and on. And I said, Tim, whatever we do, we are not going over there. That is things where if we go over there, we're not coming back.
Wow.
That is right, David Politis type of missing 411. And this voice continued and it moved. So if we were at, say, high noon, this voice was about 100 yards away from us at about 4 o'clock. Then it moved up to 3 o'clock, this female voice. And we took the trail in towards the crash site where some of the debris of the plane crash is still there. And we could still hear her, help me. I'm over here. Can you come here? And then the scary part about it was she goes, I love you. Help me. And then she stopped, and then a man's voice kicked in. And it was like, We're over here. Can you help us?
See, now, had I been with you, you would have
Yeah.
had my scat to investigate as well.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Right?
When you start
So
hearing something called, now it is creepy, right? Because it's not
Yeah.
just a voice, which would be weird
Yeah.
enough, but it's this, like, it's almost trying to mimic humanity, but it can't get the inflection right.
Right. That's exactly what it was. And when it said, I love you, that's where I knew that this was not human. And so I looked at Tim. We walked back to our base camp where my vehicle is. And I said, Tim, I said, let's make a logical decision here. I said, do you want to leave? This is creepy. We can leave if you want. And he goes, no, let's push it a little bit. And we had, prior to this happening, we had decided that we were going to put him under the Estes method.
Okay.
And so he goes under the Estes method. I'm filming him while carrying a very loud pointy stick on my shoulder, just in
Now,
case.
let me explain again for people that may not be familiar with all of the terminology. The Estes method is when you kind of rob people of their vision and their hearing. You've taken away their view, usually with goggles or something over the eyes. You're listening through headphones with the spirit box going, creating noise so that the experiencer is not influenced by the area that they're in, the expectations or the questions that are being asked because they can't hear it. And then you ask questions, and the person in the hot seat is repeating whatever words or things are coming through the spirit box. So it's a way of communication that you've seen maybe on some of the different paranormal TV shows.
Mm-hmm. Well, he started getting answers right immediately, and after a couple of minutes, he started. It started getting pretty profound language coming through on this, and as this is going on, the female voice has now moved. Remember, if we were at 12 o'clock, it's now at 11 o'clock. It went from 3 o'clock to 11 o'clock. And we could hear, but it was closer, and it was like, help me. I'm over here. Can you help me? In the meantime, Tim is in the Estes method, and eventually it goes, Dave, I know you. I said, how do you know me? In your dreams. I was like, oh, this is fun. This is real fun. So once we brought him out after about 22 minutes, we packed up and we left. And this is what goes on. This is what goes on there. And, we know there were children on the plane crash. We've had EVPs of children talking and laughing while we're trying to do our thing and we're stumbling and bumbling around. We've had, just feelings of absolute terror and fear. We've caught a Sasquatch photo of a Sasquatch face in a tree.
So you're getting all kinds of experiences from this area. You said that not all the wreckage has been claimed. Have they found all the bodies at this point, Dave?
They did find all the bodies. We have to be very careful with what we do here because where we are, Dave, in my community, there is still a lot of people out there that were part of the recovery crew. They were part of the people who went to rescue this, because back in the day, you didn't have to wait for the RCMP or, rescue crews or whatever. You just went. And at the time of the crash, there was no roads out there. No roads had been carved. So it took them 5 days to get out to the crash site, and everybody was gone. But what they saw was absolutely horrifying. I remember one person telling me her grandfather was out there helping out, and her grandfather recalls seeing like somebody's intestines wrapped around a tree branch like tinsel, and body parts hanging off trees like tinsel. And where you're walking, you're actually walking in the areas where the seats were. You could still see the seats.
They didn't clear all that up. I know in America, when a plane goes down, they'll go in and reclaim it all, put it into a shelter somewhere so they can piece it back together to see what happened and what they can notice.
what they do know about the crash, as this is still an open investigation, is that there was a bomb on board. They know it blew up in the bathroom, in the back end of the bathroom. Okay, who caused it, why they caused it, that is still unknown, and I don't think it'll ever be solved. Now, Davey, I did send you on your messenger. I did send you some photos of the Bigfoot photo if you want to use it later. Some people say they see nothing. We totally see a face, and it's in the trees. And we found that tree, and we couldn't recreate it. Because here's the thing: when you go into an area like this, even though I'm a real woo guy, man, I love the woo. You're always trying to find logic first. It's not all of a sudden everything is a Sasquatch or everything is a ghost or an alien. We're trying to find logic. Like here's one of the illogical things we have found. Now, I don't have a photo of it, but we do have it on camera. Is if you took, say, a duck print, the footprint of a duck. Now, enlarge that footprint by about a foot.
Okay.
We're finding foot-long and 10-inch wide duck prints out there.
Dude, sometimes I just wonder if Dave Scott is messing with me just to see how stupid I really am.
No, but we got it on film, though. That's the thing, Davey.
You got duck squatch?
Maybe, I don't know what the hell it is, but we found two of these prints about 90 yards apart. We don't know what the hell they are. Right?
Wow.
It's like Sasquatch. You rarely find a full set of tracks. That is, you got a better time finding gold in a creek than you do multiple prints of a Sasquatch in one location. Like we have found numerous prints there, and it's only one, or one on this trail, one on the other trail, or whatever. The ground there isn't soft. It's very hard ground. Okay, so even when it pours rain or it sits on top of snow for, underneath the snow for 5 months out of the year, the ground never seems to get wet. So these creatures, when they're stepping, we're never getting a quality print. Like a lot of people will say, well, could you cast that? No, we can't, because literally, I'll use a metric term. It's about 1 millimeter of print. Like you can't, it's not going to hold any type of casting material. So it's a weird place. There's a ton going on. One of the theories that we have is this. My theory on it all is I think the crash site was the cause, but I believe, with no proof at all, I believe that the effect of it all is the Sasquatch are taking care of the spirits that are still there. Because there is like a bubble, over this location. And in this bubble, birds don't fly, birds don't chirp. Sometimes the squirrels will go in there and pop off, And when you're in nature, if you've never been out in nature, you will learn very quickly the importance of squirrels and chipmunks, because they are nature's security alarm. And Dave, it's crazy, but we keep on going back, and we'll be back this Saturday, and we'll be going back almost every Saturday until we can't go there because of the snow.
We got just a minute and a half here left, Dave. I'm just curious, having been there, knowing that there's ghosts, there's Sasquatch, there's UFO style activity, aliens that have been seen. Have you or anybody there ever encountered periods of missing time? And thank you to Rick Ehrman for $20, donating for the duck squatch, and to Deb from SAC throwing $5 our way because she loves a double dip of Dave's. So thank you very much to both of you. But what about that missing time?
We have not had that. And it's funny you say that, because when we are up there, one of the rules we have in place is we're always watching our clocks.
Gotcha. So you're always keeping an eye on things, knowing what's going on, how close to danger or whatever it is that you're dealing with. That's fascinating stuff, Dave. man, I'll get out there. Let's do this. Let's find some time. It might have to be in spring. I don't know that I'll have time to get out there before the snow falls, but I would love to go out and investigate with you.
I would love to take you out there, Dave, because honestly, this place will scare the hell out of you. I believe I'll end it on this. I believe this place is a version of Canada's Skinwalker Ranch.
Wow. All right. Very cool. Dave Scott, host of Spaced Out Radio. They are off this week. You'll be back next week with new and improved episodes and background.
Absolutely. And but the beard is staying.
Yeah, as it should. I like the look of it. Well, thank you, Dave. It's always a pleasure catching up with you, my friend, and I look forward to our conversation. And if anything else wild happens, come back on and let's catch up.
Let's do it. Take care, my friend.
All right. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be back. Mark Lanoue joins us. What happens if we do colonize Mars? What is science telling us? And it may not be as big a surprise as you thought. We may be in for a bit of a transformation, and we'll discuss that next, right here on the Paranormal 60.
Have you been feeling called to explore your intuitive gifts and deepen your spiritual practice? Then Pathways to Spirit was created for you. Sarah Lemus has been teaching Pathways to Spirit for over 16 years. In that time, she's watched hundreds of students grow into their gifts with confidence and clarity. This isn't just about learning tools. It's about understanding how your energy works and how to use it with intention. Over 6 months, you'll learn about your own intuitive abilities and how they show up, working with crystals, energy tools, dowsing rods, automatic writing, remote viewing, and a number of other tools. But this course is about more than just learning. It's about embracing your sensitivity and living your best life. Register now at mediumsarahlemos.com while there's still space. It's time to uncover your gifts and abilities. Are you ready to join this extraordinary journey?
How are you, Darklings? This is Mark Lanoue, innovator, musician, world traveler, and no stranger to the paranormal. Come take a journey with me through this place we call life by picking up my new book, Reality Was Once the Tapestry of the Dreamer. It is available at Barnes & Noble online and will soon be available through other vendors. Get your copy by following the link in this ad or by visiting my official website at markallanlanoue.com.
Welcome back, my Darklings, to the Paranormal 60. Now, we shift from the forests of Canada to the red sands of Mars. Could future settlers face shocking transformations? That's the question. And science has weighed in. They think they have an answer. Turning green, losing your vision, and evolving into something entirely new. Researcher Mark Lanoue joins us now right here on the Paranormal 60. Good evening, Mark. Good to see you again, my friend.
How's it going, Dave?
It's going well. This article you sent me, again, fascinating. It's kind of a mind bender, but it also leans heavily into thoughts both you and I have had regarding high strangeness in the paranormal field, the concept that maybe aliens, these things that we're seeing, are us, a future version of us that are coming here to maybe get history right, witness it firsthand. I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on this, Mark? I mean, when you say that living on Mars, science is saying we may turn green, our eyes will obviously change, and will it be giant pupil black eyes, which we will need to see in that kind of environment? It's all fascinating to me. What really struck you about this article?
Well, with a lot of science and books like this, a lot of it's theory, and they don't really get to the part of how long that will take, right? So it's true that we're affected by environment. So, for example, your blood is red when it hits oxygen, right?
Right.
It's oxygenated hemoglobin. And the reason why it's red is because we see within a certain part of the spectrum with our eyes. So we see it as red, right? When it's devoid of that oxygen, and what happens basically is the photons that are hitting it are absorbed around 542 nanometers and around 570 nanometers, which is basically the blue and the green. So the blue and the green is highly absorbed. And so you see a lot of the red.
Right.
And so basically what he's saying here is, which is a big difference in environment. Obviously, you've got, if you go to Mars, you got 95% carbon dioxide in your in your environment. You only have like 0.16% oxygen. And and what happens with your
So would
skin,
we really be turning green, or is our deoxygenated blood raising to the top all of our blood vessels in hopes of getting more oxygen, and we're seeing the blue, which is giving us that green pallor?
well, what happens though is it also has to do, just like I was talking about with environment. So your environment has a lot of carbon dioxide, right? So if you have a high carbon dioxide, you're going to get something that's more probably like a gray, right? Rather than a green, for example.
Right.
And there you go, you got your grays, right? So, but the point is that all of that is changed through that adaptive function. Now, we're not just going to go to Mars and walk out there and start adapting, because we can't survive there on the surface as an organism. But back in the day, like early 2000s, I was working on a project with NASA at Kennedy Space Flight Center, and we were growing plants in controlled environments. And we were basically looking, how can we move this to Mars and be able to use as little power as possible and be able to grow plants, because people are going to need to eat. Well, everybody talks about colonizing on the surface, but we found that it made more sense to go underground, because then you don't have the impact of all that environment. You can control the sensors in the environment, and then you can use old tech along with low power, like the Egyptians used to port light down through using mirrors, right?
Right.
So the point is that you can adapt and evolve, specifically like if you're on a space station, you have lower gravity, you get less density of bone, right? Because you don't need the density of bone. You get leaky blood vessels in the back of the eyes.
Right.
And you also have, it's not like high spike radiation, but you do have a change there. And so you do see some changes in humans, especially as they stay for long periods of time. So even underground somewhere that has a different environment, a different ozone, everything's different. You probably would have leaks and changes to people over time, and then their children would have changes. So we're talking about a long transition of change and then adaptability, kind of, from that perspective. But it's funny you brought up earlier what we talk about it. So I always thought, for example, that aliens were time travelers. They were us.
Right.
You're coming back, but then you have all that adaptive change. When your environment changes, your skin color changes. As you lose all that testosterone, you no longer have to have children the biological way. Then you don't have any anatomy, so things like that. Your eyes getting bigger because, like for example, there's creatures that live in caves for a really long time. They can see in the dark, but as soon as they come to the surface, it's a big deal. So all of those things are really impacted in that way.
Here's just a thought, Mark. What if, let's play the what if game, because I love this in this kind of environment. What if these beings are us, but not us from the future, us from the past? The Lemurians, the Atlanteans, maybe they did find a way off this planet. And the reason that we're not seeing true hybridized blood, or we're not seeing true hybridized DNA, is the fact that essentially they're still human. They've just changed and adapted to the environments of wherever they're currently living. So it would change the color of their skin. It might change the way their visual perspectives work. But would it change the baseline DNA? Could that be what confuses some of these investigators, is that it's the same, it's just evolved?
Sure. Well, every bit of that's possible. I mean, we're not omnipotent like God, right? We're not living in the 11th dimension. We're still
Speak for yourself, Mark. I got to go to the 11th
Oh,
dimension
yeah.
right after tonight's show.
I think I saw that in this book right here. Is that?
Yeah. Oh wait, did you say God or Claude? Because I thought you said Claude. I am definitely Claude.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So, like for example, there was somebody who said they found an axe in the ice up north that was like dated at like 1.5 million years ago, and everybody goes, "What?" It's like now. So it is possible. It's within It's within possibility, obviously. Yeah.
Again, I just love being able to think these things through, talk about them, right? I mean, you look at all the different possibilities that have taken place, and we believe that there were these advanced colonies and civilizations. We often think, oh, the oceans rose and wiped them out. My guess is if you had the ability to build the things that we were able to build in the past, they may have found another way off this planet. And whether it was sky gods that were coming down and helping them, or we were the sky gods, it's just every 2,000, 4,000, 10,000 years, this planet is a giant etch-a-sketch that gets shaked and shaken up. And, we think things have died off when they're literally just leaving our planet and still keeping tabs on us, right? I mean,
Sure.
there's a lot to this. The future side of it and the time traveler has always been a big part of it to me, because I look at how many times we've seen strange craft flying around historic moments that have been reported days before, sometimes the time of, or days after something major happens. Are they here witnessing it, right? Is it like the ultimate love boat excursion, right? From outer space. Hey, you guys, 2023 to 2024 is going to be insane on Earth. You guys got to come see as people are coming out of the pandemic, right? And they get to come here and hover over our planet. Or 9/11, you guys have to see this to believe what actually took place. And they bring their people here to watch the attacks. And it doesn't seem so far-fetched, because we go to these places now like Gettysburg and Auschwitz and places that have historic significance to go stand there. If you have the ability to time travel and go see it play out in real time, that would be, I can't doubt that that's exactly what we would be doing in the future, or from the past coming to revisit these moments as time continues to unfold here.
Like me, you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about this stuff, don't you, Dave?
I do. Usually when I'm pooping, if I'm being honest.
And then you're dating us. Etch-a-sketches, the Love Boat. Oh, man.
Hey, let me make a quick mention. Mark Lanoue, not only being a good friend of the show and an amazing master musician, he is also the author of the book, Reality Was Once the Tapestry of the Dreamer, The 6 Degrees of Fiction 6. We've got a link, as a matter of fact, for Mark's book on tonight's program guide to his website, so you can find more about him, and to Dave Scott's website, so you can go check out Spaced Out Radio as well. I just wanted to make that quick mention. We're going to take just a very short break. We'll come back. We've got more to discuss with our guest, Mark Lanoue, right here on the Paranormal 60.
Oh, are you reading me? Come in. Hello? Greetings from the Shadow, and welcome to Shadowzine. My name is Jeff Belanger. I'm an author, podcaster, and explorer of the unexplained. For 30 years, I've been investigating the paranormal, UFOs, monsters, and things that bump in the night. Lately, you may have noticed how major TV networks and even social media networks have been pushing our favorite subject back into the shadows. I say good. That's why I launched Shadowzine, a monthly underground publication that covers your favorite topics in depth by some of the leading writers and researchers out there. If you're looking for 30-second TikTok clips, go somewhere else. If you're ready for a deeper dive, put down your phone and pick up Shadowzine. You can't find it in stores. This is old school print. Head to shadowzine.com and be part of the underground revolution. That's shadowzine.com, and I'll see you in the shadow.
Mark Lanoue, our guest this evening, and we are discussing the strangeness of life on other planets, or possibly what that life would look like coming back here. I grew up loving science fiction, Mark. I used to read the books by Edgar Rice Burroughs, The Martian Tales of John Carter, Warlord of Mars, right? And the concept that would it be like there, and the fact that the gravitational pull would be different. We would be like supermen, gods among men on that planet. And you read about the many different, there's red people, green people, gray people. There's all different species that lived on Mars, according to this book. And there's a lot to be said too, Mark, for the fact that, as you said, hey, doing something above ground, probably not going to be real conducive, but taking it underground, which they do think there may be some major revelations to uncover in our research on Mars, right? And the fact is, it may be there living right now but below the surface.
Yeah, well, you know what's funny is we know a lot more about Mars than we do Venus, for example. But it's so really interesting and
But on
definitely
this show, we're even more familiar with Uranus.
so I've heard.
Uh-huh. I'm just putting it out there that
The paranormal news crew knows they're gonna show you how science goes. So listen up and learn. They're probing Uranus. They're probing Uranus.
For God's sakes, we even have a theme song for it, Mark. That's how well studied we are in Uranus.
That is absolutely awesome.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
but the whole idea of adaptation is all interesting all in itself when you change from environment to environment, but even on the Earth. I mean, so even as we adapted and evolved, it's like in Africa, you would have to have darker skin. You have more melanocytes. You have more melanin distribution because of the sun. It was protecting against the rays. You have bigger orifices, so you have more air flow. And we're not talking about Uranus. We're talking about nostrils. And so, but and then of course, people up north in the snow were extremely white. So all those things are all impacted depending on where you go with the atmosphere, but it has to be slowly adapted in those kind of harsh environments. Like we're saying, you just can't walk out there. You drop in the surface and you're dead. You're over. It's done. So.
Mark, you've worked with NASA. As a matter of fact, you've got what is it? An award for working with NASA.
Right
Look
here.
at that right there, huh?
That's right here. Yeah. This is bad boy.
So now tell me though, when you look at that, and you've got these awards, what does NASA feel? Do they ever talk about this openly? What their thoughts are on if we are being visited, if we've always been visited, if there is life out there?
Well, with a lot of the stuff that we did, and like for instance, human exploration, development of space, and NASA commercial space and long-term space flight, a lot of that was more focused on the parallel between the dual use perspective of the research based on here on Earth, terrestrial, and then out and about, and how we were going to deal with the dynamic between humans and all this kind of stuff. So there were different parts of NASA. There's like a lot of different groups. Like for instance, even at the university I'm at right now, there's people there in planetary science that look at things more like things. Like I have a colleague, a student in the lab that deals with that kind of planetary science, where they're looking at the origin of life and stuff like that, proteins and salts and all that kind of stuff. So, but I really wasn't in the circles that really talked much about that. We had all the stuff like the flat Earth stuff and everything everybody was talking about, because they were looking at pixelated stuff and they didn't understand the acquisition process of getting a really clear picture of a planet by taking thousands of shots and then using math to make it look good because of atmosphere. So that's not answered your question, but I guess it is in a way that I wasn't really involved with the people that were would have been more in that position to kind of talk about those specific things.
Yeah, just again, knocking around in that realm, I often wonder, what do the scientists really feel? What do people working in that, and are they, inspired obviously by the concept that maybe some of the stuff that we have now is reclaimed technology and knowledge from crashed alien craft, right? So,
yeah.
Do you ever get that feeling in looking at some of the technology that we have, and that even that you're able to implement into the creations and the experiments and work you've done? Do you see that some of this stuff just seems leaps and bounds ahead of the time it was created?
Yeah, but a lot of stuff we deal with in perspective, though, a lot of times are based on the cost effectiveness. Like there's the higher order stuff we use, like higher substrates and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of funny. The one thing that we use that's probably one of the most inefficient substrates of all is silicon. I mean, it's only like 20-something% effective in absorption rate and use. So, but I believe that is quite possible that we learn from those kind of things. Now, I wasn't in those. The highest clearance I ever had was just secret. So I was not at the top level to be able to see the cool stuff. I mean, you would have to be Elvis, right? So
You're the Elvis of this show, Mark.
yeah, there you go. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm curious though what your thoughts are on the concept that they say, well, if aliens exist, if these beings are out there, how are they getting here? We still have the laws of physics. My question is this, and you know science better than anybody I know. The laws of physics are set up in a way that they are those laws because that is our interpretation of them. It doesn't mean that another species can't have figured out how to bend certain parameters of things we just don't understand at this point, right? The concept of going in and operating on the heart and brain 2,000 years ago seems impossible. Like the science fiction. Although we do find that there is proof of some cranial configuration and heart configuration and things that they tried back then, but we don't give enough credit to where we've been or where we're going in a lot of these instances, right? But my thoughts are, propulsion, energy. The concept has always been, and John Searle, who created the Searle effect generator by using some rare earth materials, was able to actually create almost like a static pocket around things that would allow them to fly at unbelievable rates. Because basically what it was doing is it was opening a pocket before the craft, which would mean no resistance. Therefore, you wouldn't need massive propulsion, because if there's nothing holding you back, you could travel very quickly in that slipstream, correct?
And what are you doing? You're changing the environment.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, it's all driven by that. And you are right to a point. It's kind of like when you read something, there's abstract and there's concrete, there's theory and there's laws. And even some of the laws have been bent and broken at some points, because at one point they didn't think you could have more than 2 moons around the moon. Well, surprise, you can. So, and even Einstein would say, these are my theories. I want you to disprove my theories and make them better, because that's what the whole process is about. So that's true.
But haven't they proven the theory of relativity? So it's no longer a theory. It's an actual principle.
Yeah, but then there's thermodynamics, which is a whole other. So, you've got connective tissue that comes around all of this stuff as well. So there are things that are pretty concrete, and then there are other things that are way too abstract until someone goes, oh. Then something that was concrete might then become new concrete. But anyway, so you are right to a point. Yeah.
Well, what about that though? If we can move the air, right? I mean, that's what I always loved about Star Trek, and people always said, how do they jump to light speed? How do they come out? You would come out in the middle of a minefield and just be blown to pieces. However, they created their own science. They have a deflector array, right? So a lot of people don't realize that big blue suction cup on the front of the Enterprise. The concept is it's basically pushing out a big energy bubble so that when you pop out, it's shoving all the marbles out of your way. So that theoretically, you're not going to get pierced by the debris. Now, that's still a science in itself, but I think we've learned enough that through infrasound and different technologies, we do have that ability to change the parameters of what's right word I'm looking for here. The auras around us, the energy around us, and we can manipulate these things.
Sure, there are manipulation technologies, and there's people that are actually moving forward with a lot of things. Like look at it where they had it where you could actually, almost like the invisible, what is it, the Harry Potter, the cloak,
cloak of invisibility. Yeah.
So back in the day, people were bringing this concept up because in field they were wanting to know, how can we hide a tank? Because my systems were finding camouflage because we can see the error rates in how you create the materials. So how can you hide it when you're dealing with thermal, when you're dealing with changes in the color where you can actually see it? Well, what I put forth was putting camera on top and then projections on the bottom and the side. So whatever you image in, you project out, and you essentially have something that's not there, right? So, but there's people that are working on lots of different things that are like that were once science fiction that are now kind of coming to bear. So.
Right. Wasn't it science fiction at one point to have a cell phone in your hand that you could flip open and contact anybody at any time? And now here we are all living the life that, and they've told you, some of the cell phone creators and engineers, that they based it on the communicator of Star Trek.
Yeah. And this, a matter of fact, the computer was not as powerful as this and was the size of a building.
Right.
So you were talking about things that, were starting off with, they had tubes, 0 and 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. Then they had belts and all this other kind of stuff. So, we made that transition to where we made everything down to this size, and we keep getting it smaller and smaller and smaller as we get into nanomaterials and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, Milena Crane says science fiction and its basis in science fact, right? And that is true. There's a lot to be said that what was once magic and mystery is now science. But that's the same with medicines and medical procedures. I had a friend of mine, and it's killing me that I can't. If you're watching, please remind me who you were. I was talking about technology and talking about the metal that reportedly was found at Roswell. And how impossible it seems to have intelligent metal that can restructure itself. And she brought to me 3 wires that they use in dental work. And she said, bend each one of them up and then twist them around and let them go. And 2 of them I did, and they just stayed in that condition. And the third one I bent up, and then I dropped it, and it slowly unfolded itself to go right back into its original stage. And I bent it up and folded it and crinkled it again and put it down, and it did the same thing. And she said, we've had this technology for a while, but it's believed that this is part of what we got from the craft. This is hyper intelligent metal.
It's like the memory foam of metal.
Only metal's not as comfortable to sleep on.
No, not at all. And I've been there.
You're right.
More than I'd like. Yeah.
Agreed. You've got a lot going on. We got to get some new music on here from you soon, Mark.
Yeah. Well, so right now we've submitted to the Grammys with Kick the Wicked has a song called Monkeys in a Jar, which is in for metal performance. And the one that you've played on your show called Whisper Still, that's off my solo record, which is going to be in rock. And in October, we have one called Forever My Love, and that one's really cool. It's got a 2-time Grammy-winning keyboard player playing on it. It's got Bumblefoot from Guns N' Roses and Sons of Apollo and those groups. He's playing a guitar solo on it. So I've got some really happening people that are going to come in. I've got people that are going to guest on my solo album, Steve Blaze from Lillian Axe and a number of other people. So it's going to be pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, very cool, man. I'm excited to see what you do next, where you take us next. And I always appreciate you weighing in on some of the different topics and articles and things that are coming out, because you do have that science mind. And just so people understand, and I should have mentioned in the beginning, give a little bit of your science background so they understand this rock and roll looking guy that we're watching right now is so much more than, than his musical memorabilia and goatee. There's science behind those eyes.
So, yeah, at one point I was a long-haired, hair down to my waist touring musician. And then when I was about to get married and all that kind of stuff, I decided to go back to college, and I got a temporary job with a group that was looking from the sky. We were imaging fields to create crop maps for farmers back in the 90s. And ended up getting referred to NASA. I was with NASA for about 9 years. I helped invent a new hyperspectral imaging system, which splits the electromagnetic spectrum into small contiguous wavelengths so you can measure things and analyze them. And then I spun it out. I was inducted to NASA Space Technology Hall of Fame in 2005, and then I became an entrepreneur for 17 years and traveled all over the world and built systems and labs for King Abdullah and the FBI. I ended up with my bachelor's degree, biosciences, computer science, business, and then I got my MBA. And right now I should have my PhD at the end of this semester in interdisciplinary science and environmental
Dr.
dynamics.
Lenu, will we still have the
Dr.
grace of
Lenu.
your joining us on the show at that point?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And my music friend who plays on my next song coming up, he's just dying to call me Dr. Rock. So
That's awesome. Well, check out Dr. Rock's book, Reality Was Once the Tapestry of the Dreamer. It's a great book. It's out and available now. You have a link for Mark Lanoue on today's program guide and all the great information. And I know you've been working on an experimental item that I'm hoping we get a chance to utilize at some point here.
Yes.
And discuss openly on the show. So, Mark, keep us in the loop. Let me know what's going on, and I look forward to talking to you again soon, my friend.
Sure will. It's great being on, Dave.
Always great catching up with you. Thank you, Mark Allen Lanoue. Tonight, we walked two very different but equally mysterious paths. With Dave Scott, we explored a forest still haunted by tragedy, where the echoes of Flight 21 seem to stir something far beyond our understanding. Ghosts, UFOs, even Sasquatch. It reminds us how deeply the unknown can root itself in the places touched by sorrow. Then, with Mark Lanoue, we looked ahead to the future of humanity on Mars, where survival may come with startling costs and strange transformations. It's a sobering reminder that the mysteries aren't just in our past or our present. They're waiting in our future as well. These stories show us that mystery is everywhere, above us, around us, and within us. And as always, may the darkness of this world be just a little brighter with the information we share here each week. I'm Dave Schrader, and this has been my Paranormal 60.